This podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, one of the world's leading international professional bodies, which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. My name is Kate Jenkinson, and I am your host for this wonderful 8-part series, Neurodiversity in the Workplace, where, along with my guests, we explore the rapidly developing landscape that is neurodiversity in work. My guests are industry leaders, coaches, and business founders who share their passion, knowledge, and the real-life situations and scenarios from their own practical lived experience. Together, we examine the complexity of the workplace for those who experience the world differently. Whether you're a business owner, leader, coach, or trainer, these conversations highlight how you can make a difference to everyone's working world by looking at life through a neurodivergent lens. I am delighted to be here with Nathan Broad today. Nathan is IT Director at Certas Energy and has joined me to talk about his experience of neurodiversity in the workplace. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks for having me, Kate, and lovely to see you. It's great to catch up with an old colleague and friend.
Exactly.
And talk about something we're both interested in.
Yeah, definitely. This is a passion for me. I work in this space in my coaching business, but I'd be really interested if you can just introduce to the listeners why this has become an area that you're interested in.
There's a bit of this which is personal and a little bit of this which is business. So I'll start with the business side of things. I'm IT director for a pretty large business. We're the largest distributor of fuel and lubricants in the UK. We're also very active now in the renewables market, things like solar installations, etc. So we've got a big workforce, around 3,000 people, getting towards 3,000 people. And I sit on the board and I sit in the senior leadership team. So I'm operationally responsible for all the IT systems in the business. But I've got this assurance and governance role as a member of the board. Increasingly, we've become aware that we need to treat people better. My words for it would be we need to be organisationally kinder to people. There's a whole load of activities that we're doing. I'm sure we'll move on to talk about some of those in a while. One leg in the camp on this is my business responsibilities to a big group of people that I help lead. The second is, as many people are experiencing in their private lives, I've had some challenges, family, and I won't go into too much details about the personal details of that, about others in my family. They've got their story to tell. But my story to tell, what I've learned from that, because I suspect that I could have done things better, if I knew more now than I knew then. And that's not about having regrets, but about how I take that forward and become a better human. There's both a personal and a business aspect to this.
Oh, I'm very touched to hear you say that, Nathan, because one of the things I talk about neurodiversity is it's a kind of developing space. It's relatively new, even the language and our understanding. So I absolutely agree that myself, I could have dealt with things differently in the past with what I know now.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your connection with neurodiversity then, how it's emerged for you over the last few years.
I'll talk about those 2 feet in the camps again. In the business, what we've increasingly seen is people starting to raise their hands, metaphorically, to say, I need help and support. And honestly, business is not really sure how to react or what to do.
Yeah.
But we are doing lots of things. We've got health and wellbeing champions in our business that will help support colleagues and start to signpost them. And we've got a variety of services that either the business funds or there are charities that we can point some of our colleagues to. So we see it more and more. And I think when the board spoke about this together, the senior leadership team, what we said was we suspected there was a missed opportunity. Not only were we perhaps not helping people enough, but if we were to just help them a little bit more, we'd probably get some really good outcomes as well from those individuals. So it's a cheesy win-win. It's good business to help people here. So that's the business side of it. And then on the personal side, I've been through a number of years with, let's just say, some personal struggles with a family member. And my reflection is that I probably behaved in the wrong way. I didn't understand and really part of what I will do or what I do with my teams is talk about some of those experiences, but not normally on a recording. One-to-one, I'll talk about and share my personal experiences. And if I can continue to be better at doing this stuff, because like you say, I wouldn't even call it a taboo because I don't think people knew to talk about it. I've been in business for almost 35 years. 35 years ago, no one was talking about this at all. It wasn't even a subject.
That's right.
I think the last 4 or 5 years, this has started to be something we're starting to recognise. On the business side, that's a bad employee. And we're perhaps assessing people the wrong way because we're unable to understand their behaviours and their needs. And actually, they're a potentially excellent employee, but we're just not helping enough. So I think that it all comes together. The two things are interlinked. It's hard to separate your work and your private life. It's a bit of like a Venn diagram. There's a bit in the middle, and that's me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so honest. Some of the things that might have been misconceptions, like you've just said, we would have maybe typecast people as being difficult or awkward and not really understanding the needs that they had. So what kind of misconceptions are you now aware of that are happening or have happened around neurodiversity?
Yeah, there's loads of examples, but one that just springs immediately to mind. If you think about the needs of some people to find a quiet space, just to reflect on what's happened in the last hour or the last 3 or 4 hours, and literally the light bulb moment for me, I was talking to someone relatively close to me in the business. So I'm the neurodiversity champion for the business, and I've got personal experience in my family life. But I was still amazed. Someone was telling me how they ate their lunch in the car every day.
Oh.
And I'd noticed it. And I honestly thought, that's a bit strange. I wonder what's going on there. And I wasn't really able to process it, but I was probably making some kind of incorrect assumptions about the situation. And then when they spoke to me, it made perfect sense. They were struggling to process the amount of information that was flying around them in an open plan office.
Yeah.
We've got a beautiful office in the Warrington area.
It is a beautiful office.
All open plan. But for some people, that's a hard place to be for 8 hours non-stop. That's not 35 years ago. That's in the last 12 months I've realised this. So I think there's just lots of little instances of that where you go, and for me, myself, mental note is they're not being rude. They're not trying to avoid interactions with people because they're a bad person. They just need a bit of me time to process what's gone on. We've got a big network, right? So we've got about 80 depots, a number of warehouses and several offices with 3,000 odd people. These little things are going on all the time, every day. One of the things we started to do is this notion of reasonable adjustments to help people. And I have to say, it couldn't be more reasonable to just accept and let someone have lunch in the car if that's what they need to do. Or we might reflect on that and say, can we create a quiet space in the office so they can do it in the office instead of the car, right? So it's that kind of thing we consider.
My curiosity, would that be something that would come back into your, is it called a resource group?
Yes, we call them communities. So we've got a neurodiversity community. We're still in the early days of forming a group with a mission and a purpose. And I describe it all at the moment as a bit top down. Leadership said, let's go and find some stuff out together and make some things happen. But what we didn't want to do is to have that led by a board of directors. We wanted to create a space where people with more knowledge and experience than us got involved and start to drive that. And we're still trying to figure out what are the list of reasonable measures we might make and how do we process them. And honestly, there are some things that conflict against each other. Right? Yeah. Some people don't like the bright lights. How do you handle that? It's a journey. But what I think is really important is to get this started, you need to start top down. You've got to at least set some things in motion. You can only get so far doing that. So we're under no illusion that just by 7 or 8 leaders saying, let's do better at helping each other, the only way it'll actually happen is if the organisation of 3,000 employees starts to do stuff. It's all those management layers beneath. There's probably 5 or 6 layers of people that need to come together and decide to do stuff. So we're giving them permission through the top-down stuff, policies, procedures, organisation. But we're going to let it run its own course. And we're letting our people drive it. I've got this role as a sponsor of the neurodiversity community.
Okay.
I'm the person that they can come and nag to get funding to do things. But what they do and how we do it is driven by the community itself. It's not a perfect world, right? And funds aren't limited, so there are compromises to be made in here and there. It's not some bottomless pit of money we can give to these communities. We still got a company with shareholders that we need. But we honestly think this is a win-win. This is good business. Business will be more effective if we do the right things by people, not just in neurodiversity, in a number of other areas as well, where we've got communities running as well.
I like the term that you use. I actually think community sounds more collaborative. I often feel that calling it an employee resource group puts the onus on the individuals to come up with all of the solutions. It sounds like there's more collaboration in the way you're structuring this, Nathan.
Yeah, so we've got 6 communities and they all have a sponsor. The sponsors are all members of the board. Each community will have a chair and a co-chair. So we have 2 people who are embedded in the organisation. So this might be a middle-level manager or someone else lower in the organisation. Someone with a genuine interest, a bit like I've described, either because they're running teams when neurodiversity is a challenge for them, or they've got issues in their private life, either personally, through a spouse, through a family or a friend. And then we have members join that community, people who are interested. I'm an IT guy, right? So you might call them subject matter experts.
I think so.
They're people who know about what's really going on. To help them, in our HR team, we've got an ED&I manager that helps coordinate, because we've got these 6 communities ranging from LGBTQ plus to gender to neurodiversity. It's coordinating the activities so we're not pushing and pulling against each other. And also we're sharing resources like money between those groups.
What kind of practical things has the neurodiversity community been able to advocate for, and what kind of outcomes have you noticed?
A really nice thing, and this is probably the most awesome thing so far, is that before we'd even had the notion of communities, the bit 3,000 people, they'd already started their own community. So we call that the support group. There's a number of people. Typically, it might be because someone themselves suffers with ADHD, or they've got a family member, perhaps a child, and to coin a phrase, struggling somewhat with some aspect either of the home or the business life. And it started off with a couple of people that started talking on a Friday. And before it was a drop-in group. There's about 30 or so people that join that. And now we run it on a Wednesday and a Friday as a drop-in.
Okay.
So that's where it started in the business. It's a really nice process. I've joined more than a couple of times. Personally, it's the ability to check in with people. We all check in a circle together and say, hi, I'm Nathan, and this is my challenge this week, or this is what I'm not looking forward to at the weekend. And there's a little bit of light, I would say, signposted from people's experiences there. Quite an informal start, but really impactful for those that, and through word of mouth, that's growing.
Okay. And I'm really interested in that because you mentioned ADHD. This is something I'm very familiar with personally. My daughter and I are self-diagnosed. So the kind of support that really helps me is that body doubling, conversation and connection with others. So yeah, it sounds like a really helpful way to have got started. And I like the way that you've put that top down in place. A lot of times people ask me, how do you get commitment from leaders on this? Was that a challenge you ever faced, or did it always have that top-down support?
When you're running a large, complex business, it is hard to schedule the time to have the discussion. Unfortunately, this was deemed important enough that it did get airtime, and we started things off. To really get us kick-started, we created an event. So we call this the Big Meet. And we did that in our 2 primary locations. We've got a big office location in Warrington. We've got a biggest office location up in Scotland at a place called Larbert. There's 2 locations. There's about 300 or 400 of the back office and front office staff that support the business. We did a launch through what we call the Big Meet, and we did the kind of things you might expect to do at these, but our approach was we created pretty informal little pods, tables where all the community members were there, so the sponsors were there, the community chairs were there, and we just invited people from the office to come and talk to us. And, you know, what a great, you give them cakes and coffee, right? That's a good way to get people to come.
It was just a chance to eat cake. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. And probably a necessary and good thing, top and tail that with formal communications. So launched it with a short presentation deck where we said, this is why we think it's important. This is what we're doing. We let people know what their part in this could be. You know, join a community, join more than one community, lead a community if you want to. And I think they were really well received. I think our reflection is we need to do more of them. So we plan to do more of these big meets. Okay. We'll continue that this year, because that old adage that you need to tell people something 7 times before it sinks in is probably true. We just need to do a bit more of that to keep it going. We did outline for the first 12 months at least some objectives, not targets, but
what kind of outcomes are you hoping for then?
You need people to really lead on the ground action here. So the chair and the co-chair, getting those set up is a really important part of it. It's hard to have a community without some form of leadership. That was important. We did have gaps because 6 communities, you need 12 chairs or co-chairs. We also needed to put in place this HR structure to help them. So we needed that role created and a pot of money to help them. We've done a little bit of work on goals, missions and values to help the communities frame it. And we've set a bit of a target for each community. Are our policies in good shape for your community? So we've asked them all to do policy reviews and give us input on policies. And we've also said, figure out what your number one thing to do is in the first 12 months. For neurodiversity, we've agreed, and I say we, not me, but the community's agreed, We want to raise awareness.
Okay.
So we want to make people aware, because there's this massive spectrum of areas, and I can't even list them all. I'm definitely not what I would call a domain expert. I'm more of a figurehead. Everything from dyspraxia to dyslexia, a whole spectrum of things that people might be neurodiverse on. And so helping particularly 2 or 3 communities. One, to make sure the leadership team know what we're talking about a bit if we're going to sponsor things. That's one of the things. Help managers manage their teams. How does a manager support someone? And also for the health and wellbeing champions to give them some extra support and training, because now that we're raising this, we're given permission to, I think people have been masking a lot of things.
I'm pretty sure.
Some people came up and said, actually, I think I might need some help and support, but I've been worried to tell my manager about this. So they're reviewing the policies and getting awareness raised through some kind of training program, which will be everything from posters and webinars and some classroom-based training where needed. That's where that community started. Other communities have done other things.
I'm really interested in the role that you have as IT director as well, because quite a lot of the environmental struggles and challenges can be resolved through IT solutions, can't they? I'm just wondering if there are some areas that you've noticed that people find challenging and that you've implemented some solutions to help with.
Yeah, one example, I really hate to say the word AI.
Yeah, don't say it.
It almost means nothing. What I would say is, for some people, they might struggle in a session like this to lead the conversation and take notes at the same time. So we're starting to put some tooling in place. Typical tooling might be something like Copilot, which is available through Microsoft. There are lots of other solutions as well. I happen to be the data privacy manager as well. So there's some kind of privacy hurdles to make sure you're really careful about. We're certainly trying to help people with digital technology where we can. And there are some government funds that you can tap into for people that need specific needs, where they might need a particular type of screen display. They can get funding, and there's other things as well. I think that answers the question.
I think it does. I'm curious to see how that develops. We're just having a conversation for the podcast, which is neurodiversity in the workplace, but you and I talk about this often anyway. The idea of reasonable adjustments feels to me that's sometimes an after the thought or after the fact outcome. What about being neuro-inclusive right at the beginning? What kind of things are you noticing as people are talking about the policies that you can change to make things inclusive from the get-go?
We've moved in the last 3 or 4 years from a traditional office environment where there were doors and certain people would have an office with a closed door. You can say that was a good thing because it helped privacy. You can also say it's a pretty bad thing because it didn't really help us reach out and speak to people in a free way. It made people somewhat inaccessible. In the office we're in now, the first office design, I don't think we paid much regard to neurodiversity in the sense that we decided to flip everybody.
You went the other way.
Yeah. For example, no directors have an office anymore. For someone who's had an office for the last probably 20 years, kind of a big change.
It is, yeah.
But as the expression goes, I've lent into it. And actually, I really enjoy it. I float around our office and have a lot more personal interactions with people than I used to. But as we've been talking about, the flip side is that I think we might have been in a position where we're saying, well, we solved the office. We've done a great job. But actually, some people now, it will be worse for them than it was before. So we're starting to think about, for example, extend the office. And we're starting to include the notion of, have we thought enough about a quiet area? Where, are there enough spaces where you can close the door and get away? But there's more to be done. I don't think we have all the answers yet. There are some hard challenges to come, and this might sound a bit trivial, but we did a wonderful thing. We put a table tennis table in the office, and it's great. But if you sit next to that thing...
That would drive me mad.
Yeah.
Constant noise.
And it's not just a tick, 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 but also a very social thing, which is a lovely thing. People talk.
Yes.
They're talking over the ping pong, so it's pretty loud. Unbelievably distracting for some people who might be trying to focus. It's a balance. We're wrestling with, what do you do? I don't think we have the answer yet. One answer might be, we'll take the table away. But do we replace it with something else that's social but less intrusive? That's the kind of challenge we're facing. We could congratulate ourselves on a great office design. It's undoubtedly better in many respects, but we need to do more as we move forward to consider what the impact be. If you like, for the majority that aren't neurodivergent, have we thought about the others?
There is no one size fits all. It's really tricky. What helps with that feedback? Because I think that in the cultures that I support as a coach, I notice the ones that are good at this have really good feedback loops in place. What kind of feedback loops have you got to help you with that challenge?
We are supported by our HR team. For example, these communities meet regularly. So that's a kind of a feedback loop. But they also meet together regularly as well. Not as regularly, but they just coordinate. And we'll have a report to the board. So there's a feedback loop. And we also have an employee engagement survey every year where our progress here will be measured and we'll get feedback, both sense of scores, marks out of 10, but also critically get the verbatim words that people say about it.
Yeah, that's the important stuff.
That we then look at, and normally we try and take proactive action. It's that classic, you said we did things we like to do with that survey if we're able to. So there's a number of feedback loops. And I have to say, I think there's lots of other uncontrolled, informal communications just going on across the business. Tools like Teams. Distant teams can really feel quite well connected. We're part of a larger business, a company called DCC, who are our owners. They're a FTSE 100 listed business. There are communities also in the rest of the group in other countries, some in the UK and sister businesses in the UK, Flowgas Britain, for example, and also in other countries. We've got some bit of outreach through, what are you doing about this issue? What have you considered here? There's quite a bit of feedback. I think probably the worst feedback, but it is one nevertheless, is exit interviews, right? So occasionally...
Yeah, it's a bit too late then, isn't it?
It's too late, but at least we're doing that to try and catch that on the way out if we're still getting it wrong. I think it's worth noting that we do that.
Yeah. So in the neurodivergent community, there's a bit of frustration. One is that sometimes neurodiversity is described as a superpower, that there are strengths that people have and organisations can get a lot of value out of that.
You'll hear this expression hyper-focus and this kind of thing, right? You'll hear this.
Exactly. Or you might hear that people with ADHD are very creative and can come up with lots of ideas, and then the difficulty is getting them in place and executed. Does that come up in your community at all as either a real positive, so make sure you use somebody who's neurodivergent to help solve a problem, or how does it show up for you in your place of work?
I think we're aware that there's language that's becoming common if you see media. I'm not sure that's our narrative. We're not using that language at the moment.
I don't think it's a helpful language to use, really.
Yeah. We're not going to try and portray things like superpowers or hyperfocus. It's the awareness trade, and this is why the awareness trade is so important, so that people who just don't know because they've not experienced it or don't understand it are aware what it means, what the implications are for the individuals. And certainly we're not going to train in an expectation that there's superpowers. That's not part of our plan. But I understand in the world of social media, that's the kind of language that is being trooped around. If you go on LinkedIn, there's lots of this type of focus and superpowers.
The thing is, it sounds like you have circumnavigated the need to talk about this as a business benefit. Like you say, you're already building the community that set itself up naturally. You're supporting that. And your goal is to be, as you said, organisationally kinder. Sometimes organisations are looking for that ROI before they do stuff. So we'll only support neurodiversity or neuroinclusion if we're getting something back from it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what you're doing because it doesn't sound like that.
No. As business people, we honestly believe it'll trickle down to our bottom line in the end.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to measure. So you just got to believe and trust you're doing the right thing.
Okay.
Because you're never going to be able to say that flip from one value of PBIT to another value of PBIT. Because as a result of that, you're not going to be able to prove cause and effect. But we'll feel it in those feedback loops you talked about. We'll see it in our survey results. We'll see it in staff retention. But we're not setting targets here. There is not a target. There's not an ROI.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is just an investment in people.
It sounds like the best way to do it, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What guidance would you give other senior leaders who are on their journey and don't know where to start supporting their neurodivergent talent or neurodiversity?
I would say it's okay to step forward not knowing what the outcome is going to be. My world in IT is Gantt charts and project plans, right?
Yes.
Return on investments, capital plans. So it probably needs to be dealt with a little differently. But I would advocate, listen, you learn what you can from experiences you've had. I've seen a business change the way it approaches safety, move from a position where safety was something management used to say, being naughty, stop being unsafe. You need a bit of that top down to what we call behavioural safety. We've had an amazing journey with our company on behavioural safety, where we put the accountability and responsibility with the employees themselves and educate them and train them and help them to understand why. I think it's the same on this. You need to start with some leadership. Don't stamp out any little pockets of things that spring up, embrace them, like our support group for neurodiversity. Embrace that and incorporate it, and your people will guide you through it. I think it should be sponsored by the board, led by the employees, and trust that doing the right thing will always pay dividends for a business.
I like the way that you've aligned it with safety. Do you feel that having these communities has improved the psychological safety in your organisation?
Yeah, I won't say individual names. When we went up to our Larbert office, someone expressed at our plinth for neurodiversity that they've been holding back and masking something for a number of years and had never been, I'm not sure it's the right way, but brave enough to tell their manager. That's how they expressed it. Us talking about it gives permission for others by the leadership talking about it. And I'm pretty sure in that situation, that person, and brave is the wrong word, right? But I've used it as a bit of a placeholder. But they were then brave enough to go. And it's because we give them permission. Now, I'm not going to be presumptuous enough to say that we've eliminated all elements where it's completely psychologically safe. I'm sure there's still challenges here and there.
It's hard to do that.
But we're trying to make this a psychologically safe place for people to talk about themselves. We use language, be your normal, usual self in the office. You don't need to mask, just be yourself. Whether it's a disability, whether you're gay, or whether you're neurodiverse, be yourself. That's probably the ultimate outcome.
I know you've alluded to it, Nathan, but I'll give you credit because I know that you shared your story, and so you were courageous or brave or vulnerable, call it what you will, so that others felt able to do the same. And I think as a leader, that makes a difference in organisations that have a leader who's willing to do that. And I think that was something you said you wished you'd have done differently. But do you see that as a real change in how you approached neurodiversity and mental health in the workplace?
What I will say is through me talking to others, and this is a really important thing for me as an individual, as a human being, what I found out is that my story actually is everybody's story. I had specific experiences of some things that were pretty difficult, and I thought, it's just me, and my family's alone in this. And you talk to others, and all of a sudden, and I'm not being, there was one particular incident, and I thought, this must be unique. And about 5 people in a conference came to me and said, I've had exactly the same experience. And it just helps. It's that I'm not alone. It's okay to fail and not be as good as some stuff that, because it's part of being a human.
Thank you for that. I think it's really important you have been able to do that in your organisation. You know, I'm a coach. The podcast is with the Association for Coaching. How has coaching got a role to play, do you think, in organisations becoming neuro-inclusive?
I'll go back to this model of upper management and hierarchies and people doing their jobs within the organisation. The way that actually you make change happen is the mobilisation of those middle layers of management to go and take what vision your business leaders have got and then do practical things with their people. Now, I think it's all around coaching managers through what might be difficult emotional conversations with employees. I'm not sure you can coach empathy, but you can certainly lead the way. You can certainly demonstrate it. You can talk about behaviours that people may be able to practice. And if you could just give them a little bit of muscle memory so that when it arises for them for real, it's not unfamiliar, that have at least got a process or a method or a tool or a signpost to hang on to. So coaching people through that and being prepared for it to be a bit of a challenge, right? This is tough stuff.
You've got a big team, haven't you? How many people report to you?
I've got a pretty large IT team. We've got about 50 people in my direct staff, looking without getting boring about IT, but...
Yeah, don't get boring about IT.
IT help desks right through to ERP systems, a whole range of things and governance and projects and all sorts. And then I have a bit of an indirect team as well in one of our subsidiary business. It's about 25. So we've got about 75 IT professionals in the business.
You were talking about helping people create some muscle memory around things should a difficult conversation come up. I'm curious if you've got any things that you have found in your role have been useful for you, tools, techniques that you found worked for you.
I have things like town hall meetings for the IT team.
Yeah.
So we get together virtually because we're all scattered across the country and we'll give regular updates. I think you have to lead by example. If I'm directly approached, what I'm going to try and do every time I have an interaction with my team is try and support them with empathy, do the right thing. Simple things like if you're in an open plan office, you can't talk about this in the middle of the canteen, so you go off somewhere. I talk a lot about happiness with people.
Okay.
The tool I use, the situation we're in right now is you're unhappy. We need to understand what we need to do to move you from that place to a happier place. And sometimes you get great outcomes. Honestly, sometimes it's unresolvable, and that's unfortunate. But what I always say is that you need to be happy. The happiness in your life is so important. So occasionally you might need to move somewhere else to be happy as well. And that might be So you've got to be very direct with people. There's no point pretending it's all going to be good. So you've got to be practical. So I'll try and remove barriers and I'll try and support people, but we'll focus on what's the end outcome that you want.
I like the response in terms of the openness to explore what happiness is for each person, because there maybe isn't one answer to that. I was just curious if you've got any. Some of the people I work with have these acronyms that they like to use to help them do that, to help them work through a process with people. But what I heard you say is everyone's unique and just have an open conversation with them. Can't think of a better answer, frankly.
Yeah. The reality is when someone talks to me, it's either because they've tried and a layer below me.
Yeah.
Or they haven't tried because there's an absence of trust.
Okay.
You've just got to enter it with an open mind. I personally have to throw out my misconceptions in my private life where I judge things without information and formed conclusions that were probably incorrect and then took actions that were suboptimal, right? And if you bring that into the business space, that's not a great outcome for the individual or the business either. So I think you've got to treat people as individuals and listen, right? You've got to listen. There isn't a magic wand. As a leader, you don't have a magic wand. We're not magicians as leaders. But all we can try and do is be human with people and try and help them along the way. And if you can encourage your management team layers to do the same thing, you're going to move towards a kind organisation.
I love that. It's so easy to say. When I train it, there are about 9 different skills to actually listen effectively. And like you were saying, if you've trained, did you say you've got mental health first aiders, people who've got those skills? Yeah,
we have health wellbeing champions and mental health first aiders who are a subgroup of them.
It's a whole system thing, isn't it, when you're trying to become more neuro-inclusive? And I can hear that you're doing all of those different things.
Well, we'll mention one tool then, because you made a thought come back to me.
Yeah.
But years and years ago, I went on some course. I think it was called Agile. It's not the Agile for software development, some kind of Agile business leaders. We spent about a half day talking about reflective listening. And that was a real light bulb moment for me, because my world, prior to that course, this is some years ago, I was just like, if I ask them a question once, they're going to tell me the answer straight away. Why wouldn't they do that? That's what I do. But what I've learned is people don't necessarily do that. This notion, and I probably do this naturally now, rather than being something that was taught to me and I have to remember how to do it. But this notion that you listen attentively and then frame in your own words what they've tried to express to you.
Yes.
Because they're going to go, yeah, that's exactly it, Nathan. Or they might go, no, Nathan, that's not at all what I'm saying. Let me try again. That was probably 20 odd years ago in my personal life and business life. That was a real eye-opener for me. I was working at General Electric at the time. I honestly thought that if you ask someone a question, they just give a straight answer. Turns out that's not true.
It's not true for many reasons.
Yeah.
We could go down a whole rabbit hole of what those reasons might be.
But reflective listening for that kind of conversation is super important, I think, because you just got to practice it, right? You just got to do it a bit. And then actually, I can't remember not doing reflective listening now.
No, it becomes something that is part of who you are.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting in neurodiversity, something I'm learning at the moment around asking people what they need or what would help, is sometimes they don't know the answer because it's so new to be having conversations like this. It's also possible that if somebody is learning to advocate for what they need or to unmask because they feel safer, sometimes they're not going to have the answer to the question, what do you need to feel better or work better in the workplace or feel happier? They might not know the answer to that. And I see that comes up in coaching quite a lot. But that not knowing is important. You said before is that it's important to understand that you won't always know the answer and to work that out together. Super. Is there a mindset shift then in becoming neuro-inclusive as an organisation, would you say?
Yeah, I would say we're still at the start of it. We definitely haven't got it all figured out. There was a little bit of light analysis done of exit interviews and people that left, and there was a correlation with us being less competent at helping them than perhaps we ought to be. It's probably several years. It might even be lots of years of work. But we've started the conversation. We've got the big meet set up. We've got the communities rolling. They need to take their own pathway through now. We have little wins here and there. We've got a number of people who, I call them the leaves, but we have these leaves that we put over people's desks to mask the lights for them. And the people who've got them now who needed them to stop the light, super cheap solution as well. And we're hot desk, and you can literally just fold it up and stick it in your locker at night and then go on your next hot desk and stay and it clamps on. They're really great. It's not a silver bullet to every problem, but it's a reasonable adjustment. So it's stuff like that we're starting to do.
Cool. Last question. How has sponsoring the neurodiversity community changed your own leadership perspective, would you say?
My natural inclination is to direct and lead.
Yes.
So it's helping me grow as well, because the business doesn't need me to manage IT. I've got a really great team of about 7 or 8 direct reports that run teams. In that team of 75 people, they manage the book of business and I need to really lead. This is a great case study in boards not trying to make every decision. Empower your organisation, truly empower them, give them the money, delegated authority to do things, but come to us if you need help and more money.
Excellent.
So that helps me greatly, because my natural inclination is right then, neurodiversity people, let's build a Gantt chart.
So let's solve it.
Are we on track? We're not doing that. So it helps me because leadership is showing the way. It's not pulling people along the way.
I love that. Thank you very much, Nathan, for talking so openly about your organisation and where you are on this neuro-inclusion journey. I really enjoyed our chat, and I probably hope we can talk again another couple of years and find out what you've discovered during that time. Thank you.
I would be delighted to as well, and it gets me thinking about some other things, so it's a helpful process for me and a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For over 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations, and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or visit our webpage at associationforcoaching.com, where you can explore our digital learning hub and enjoy our extensive library of on-demand webinars, podcasts, and a portfolio of live events featuring thought leadership tools, models, and the very latest industry trends to help you develop your coaching expertise.